I have wanted to make a rosemary infused soap ever since I watched a YouTube video by Ellie's Everyday Soap Making. I will try to link to her YouTube channel somehow, but rosemary has a ton of skin benefits that make it an ideal additive in soap. However, Ellie had a few issues with the recipe she used in her video. For one, it had no lather, and two, it was lye heavy, both of which she fixed in a follow-up video, but I started with a different recipe and I had some issues of my own. I started by infusing olive oil with fresh rosemary from my garden. I covered the rosemary leaves with olive oil in a crock pot and left it on low overnight. Then I strained out the leaves and I added back enough olive oil for my recipe. I should have used one of my go-to recipes that I had experience with, but I did not. I used a recipe that was high in olive oil, too high, and you'll see why. The recipe also uses coconut and castor oil. For additives, I used French green clay for the soft green color and colloidal oats. I didn't add any fragrance because I was curious to know if any of the rosemary scent would come through saponification. I used aloe vera juice in place of water for my lye solution, and I added sugar and silk before adding the lye to it. When I blended the lye solution into the oils, the color morphed into this crazy burnt orange color. But Ellie had that same thing happen in her video, and then the soap returned to the pretty green color after it saponified. I was so proud of how cute the top turned out on this loaf because I am not very good at making cute tops. But in the end, it didn't matter. I waited days and days for this soap to set up enough to unmold it, but it was still soft and goopy. So I decided I would cut it all up and melt it down and add some sodium lactate to harden the soap. I also added some yogurt just because I think it adds something nice to hot processed soap. I am handling this without gloves because I've already pH tested it and it's completely saponified, so it's safe to handle. But this did not fix my soap. It still did not harden. The problem was my recipe. I had too much olive oil and not enough hard oils to make a hard bar of soap. So I seriously thought about scrapping the whole thing at this point, but I already invested so much time and energy and money. I don't know if you've bought olive oil recently, but even the cheap oil is not cheap right now. So I revamped the whole recipe and decided to add more hard oils. I added more coconut oil, I added palm oil and lard. And because I added more oils, I had to add more lye solution. I just used water with my lye this time, no extra additives, and I used a 2.5 to 1 ratio for that lye solution. I have never done this before, so I don't know if this is the right way, but I know I wouldn't recommend doing what I'm about to do, especially if you've never made soap before. I melted down the old soap and the hard oils on low temp on my stovetop until everything was completely soft and it mixed together. And then I added my lye solution. This is where something unexpected happened. In trying to incorporate or emulsify the lye into the oils, the whole thing turned into dry, hard flakes. I don't know if you can tell, it's not even sticking to the pot, it just falls off. And honestly, at this point, I thought about giving up again, but I decided to just cover it with saran wrap like I would normally do in hot process and just see what happened. When I came back to it, the lye solution had separated and the oils were soft again, and so I was able to hand stir everything together. I cooked and stirred this for a while, probably over an hour. Every time I would stir it, I would pH test it until the pH dropped below a 10, indicating that all the lye had been saponified. And it was storming when I was cooking this on my stovetop, and we ended up losing electricity for a couple of hours, so I didn't get to record how it looked at the end. But here it is the next day, and I'm able to unmold it, and the soap was so hard I was afraid to use my wire cutter on it, so The first loaf I just cut with a regular soap cutter. It wasn't quite as hard as I thought it was, so I was able to use my wire cutter on the other 2 loaves. I absolutely cannot believe that I saved this soap from total disaster, and it turned out so pretty. The color from the rosemary and the green clay, it's been really diluted at this point because I've added so much more to the recipe. So it's just this really beautiful pale green. None of the scent from the rosemary came through, not even the original cold process batch. At first, it smelled a little earthy, but now there is no scent. It just smells like soap. I did a lather test to see what kind of lather we would get. I was completely surprised to see that this soap floats. I guess when I was using the stick blender in the pot trying to emulsify the batter, I must have whipped the part that was already soap and incorporated enough air to make it float. The lather is really nice. It doesn't have great big bubbles, but it has lots of little small bubbles, and it feels really silky and almost a little lotiony, but it rinses off really nicely. So I think that this will make a fantastic face or hand soap since it has no scent and it has such a nice feel to it. If you know the right method that I should have used to fix this soap, please let me know in the comments.